All right, we can get started. I'll just admit people when they start coming in. Thanks for coming to our program tonight. My name is Paige. I am a programming assistant at the La Crosse Public Library. Happy National Library Week. This week we have a few events going on. Tonight's event, of course. And then just a reminder, on Wednesday the 7th, we have our new cookbook club, which is with Noreen Fish. It's a book club where we talk about cookbooks and different recipes, and it's brand new. This is the first time, so if you're interested in that, let me know. And then on Thursday, we have an author talk with the authors of Grief Reimagined. So if you're interested in that as well, both of those are held via Zoom. And then on Saturday, we have our chapters discussion for Paris is Always a Good Idea. So if you are interested in any of those, just let me know. You can send me an email, reply to the link that I sent you today, or you can register online via our events calendar. So I'm going to welcome now Jeff, and he'll introduce himself. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Jeff Kersten. I work for the State of Wisconsin Bureau of Consumer Protection. And we are here to talk about identity theft. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. Not the most pleasant topic to talk about, but one that I think we do need to talk about. Identity theft is still the fastest growing crime in the United States. There's more money lost to identity theft than all other property crime put together. And I can tell you that during the pandemic here over the last 12 plus months, the bad guys haven't taken the year off. There's so many scams out there related to COVID and some new trends. So we're going to cover some of that information. I'll be honest with you. The first part of the presentation is kind of the doom and gloom, if you will, kind of the bad information of how they steal our information, how they use it against us. But we do wrap it up at the end with some things that we can actually do to protect ourselves. So I'm just going to share my screen here. All right, there we go. Should have a presentation up on the screen there for you. Feel free to put any questions into the chat here. Let me pull the chat bubble up. I'll kind of monitor that as we go, and we can try to answer some questions in real time. Or if you just want to wait until the end, that is fine as well. So identity theft, we're going to cover what it is, how it happens, like I said, how they steal our information, how they use it against us. We're going to talk about those scam phone calls that everybody is sick and tired of, and a lot of information coming up here. So let's just jump right in. What is identity theft? Well, it's the criminal use of our personal information to obtain money's good services. We know that they're after our money. But as you can see on the screen, somebody could use your name and personal information to get a job, to fill out that I-9 paperwork on day one of a new job. They could go to a hospital and they could fool that hospital or clinic into thinking that they're treating you. Well, really, they're treating this identity thief. Government benefits. This is one of the new things here in the last 12 months. This is now the new #1 form of identity theft, is somebody applying for government benefits in your name, whether that's a paycheck protection loan or small business loan or unemployment benefits. It's jumped all the way from number 7 on the list in 2019 to number 1. And then hiding from law enforcement. We kind of joke about the oldest form of identity theft. So this is actually my background. I did a horrible job introducing myself at the beginning of this. I was a police officer for about 13 years, so I've seen identity theft from the law enforcement side of things. I started out in consumer protection as an investigator, and so I've seen how Bureau of Consumer Protection helps people recover from identity theft. And I've actually been the victim of identity theft. But I can tell you, as a prior police officer, you make a lot of contacts with citizens. And sometimes people lie to the police to cover up the fact that they have a warrant for their arrest or a suspended driver's license. Well, it's one thing if they just make up a name to try to get out of a ticket, and there's penalties for that, but that's law enforcement's issue. But if they were to use your information to try to fool that police officer, and if they were successful, a citation could actually get filled out in your name. You wouldn't even know it. And then all of a sudden you get a notice from the court that they're going to suspend your driver's license. So lots of different forms of identity theft out there. Excuse me. So what information do they want? Well, the short answer is everything. The more information that they have about you, uh, the easier it is for them to fool that employer or hospital or clinic into thinking that they're dealing with you. Well, really, they're dealing with an identity thief. So everything here you see on the screen, from driver's license numbers and addresses and email address, and even down to your biometric data, your fingerprints and your retinal scans to open up your phone and get access to your accounts. But if you take one takeaway from this slide, what they're really looking for is your name in conjunction with your date of birth and your social security number. If you think about it, those three pieces of information don't really change over time. You always have the same date of birth. You always have the same social security number. Even if you can show the Social Security Administration that you're the victim of identity theft and that your information is in the wrong hands, they will not give you a new number. And you basically have the same name your entire life. I mean, short of a legal name change or maybe a last name change with a marriage, that stays pretty consistent as well. So once that information is in the wrong hands, it's always in the wrong hands, which is why it's so vitally important that we keep this information safe and secure and private. Just to break down here by age, to be honest with you, not a lot of good information in this slide. Children are victims of identity theft, our seniors are victims of identity theft, and everybody in between. They actually recommend that parents bringing newborns home from the hospital freeze their credit, which we're going to talk about later, as a form of identity theft protection. But a lot of people look at this slide and find it interesting that it's actually our younger generations that fall victim at a higher rate. It's not just a crime that affects seniors. So it's nice to see a drop off with the seniors of the amount of the individual incidents of identity theft. But each time our seniors fall victim, they tend to lose more money. So like I said, just not a lot of good information on this slide. And unfortunately, the bars just keep getting bigger and bigger every year. Here's that new #1 form of identity theft, the government documents and benefits fraud. Just need to turn the news on and you can hear about fraudulent unemployment claims that are out there. This is actually now more common than just having your credit card information compromised, which most of us have experienced that, where either you spotted it or the bank spotted it, and they cancel the credit card, issue a new credit card, and you get it within a day or two. It's actually now more common that somebody might apply for benefits in your name. Other things that we see here on the list, we talked about employment fraud, tax-related fraud. There's some new information out from the IRS that we're going to cover at the end that we can use to protect ourselves from tax identity theft. They will, #6 on the list here, they'll use your information to open up phone accounts and try to get cell phones, or just bank fraud, just trying to steal money from your bank accounts. So how does it happen? How do they get our information? Well, I just kind of broke it down: low tech and high tech. Low tech, dumpster diving. They will pull that information right out of the trash. So if you're throwing away any pieces of information or paper that had that important information on it, certainly name, date of birth, social security number, like we talked about earlier, but everything else, physical address, email address, phone number, driver's license number, account statements that have special numbers on them, that account numbers that tie back to your name. Every little piece of information that they can tie back to your name just gives them a bigger picture of your identity. Stolen mail. Usually when you see that red flag on the mailbox on the side of the house, it means somebody's paying a bill. A lot of information in that envelope, in the form of an account statement and a personal check. They'll steal that right out of the mailbox. Stolen wallets and phones. The biggest thing with wallets is just don't carry your social security card around with you. A driver's license or ID card in conjunction or in a wallet with a social security card gives an identity thief everything that they need to immediately start doing damage, immediately start trying to open up credit cards and get loans in your name. There's very few times in your life that you need that paper social security card. Maybe day one of a new job, opening up certain types of interest earning retirement accounts, but it's few and far between. So keep that locked up and secure. And then still phones. So most people nowadays have smartphones, or multiple smartphones if you have a work one and a personal one. Just think of all the information that you store in your phones nowadays. Access to your email and your contacts and your text messaging, and there's online shopping apps that might remember payment card information, online banking apps, just an incredible amount of information. So the biggest thing with your phone is make sure that there's some kind of security on the phone, whether you do the facial recognition or fingerprint, but have something, even if it's just a code or a pattern that you have to swipe in, so that if your phone falls into the wrong hands, somebody can't just push a button, swipe up on it, and have access to all of that information. And then there's the high-tech way that they get our information. So we're going to talk about skimming devices on the next slide. Phishing scams, those are the fake phone calls that we get, emails, text messages, that we're certainly going to cover that information. Data breaches, a frustrating way that our information gets released through no fault of our own, that we have to deal with. And then social networking. So let's look at sites like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram from we'll look at it at what identity thieves are looking for, and what we choose to share on those sites, or maybe overshare information. So skimming devices. This can happen at ATMs or gas pumps, but for the most part, I'm going to talk about it in the context of a gas pump. So there's internal and external skimmers. So what this is a device that a criminal puts on a gas pump. And when you pay for your gas, whether you pay with a debit card or a credit card, when you push that into the machine, you're pushing it past the criminal's device. So the top picture is an external skimmer that is reading the magnetic stripe on your debit or credit card. It steals the account number, and then when the criminal retrieves that device, they transfer that to a fake credit card with a mag stripe on it, and they effectively have a cloned copy of your credit or debit card. So like I said, the top picture shows an external device. So these are usually pretty cheaply made, held on with, double-sided tape and things like that. The recommendation is before you pay for gas at the gas pump to kind of grab that credit card reader and give it a wiggle. And well, if it falls off, that's a bad sign. Don't pay for gas at the gas pump. It's always best to go inside and pay. But because of COVID, I've heard from a lot of people that they're not as comfortable going inside and pay. They want to pay at the gas pump. So if you pay at the gas pump, let's talk about how to pay at the gas pump. So if you have a way to pay with a contactless, where you can use your phone, or your card, your credit card has that chip in it, that will protect your account number from the scammers, because it goes through an encrypted transaction. But if you have to pay at the gas pump and you have to insert the card into the machine, it's best to use an actual credit card for that purchase. So from the standpoint of identity theft, you have incredibly more protection if you use a credit card for your transactions. Because if somebody gets a hold of your credit card number, makes a fraudulent purchase, one, that's not your money, it's the credit card company's money, so it's easy to recover that. You also have federal law that protects you in the form of, you have 60 days from the date of your last statement to notice those fraudulent charges and not be held financially responsible. Conversely, with a debit card, that's your money, that ties right back to your checking account. So even if the bank or the credit union is going to reimburse that money, there may be a period of time that you're actually out that money. So I just recommend that people have that conversation with the bank or the credit union. Ask them, hey, if somebody gets a hold of my debit card information, how much time do I have to report that and not be held financially responsible? Depending on how the bad guy uses your debit card, you may only have 48 hours to notice that and not be held financially responsible. Ask the bank or the credit union how much they're going to reimburse. How long is it going to take to get that reimbursement? What if this happens to you 2 or 3 times during a calendar year? Is there a limit of how many times they're going to reimburse you? I just see a question pop up here on the screen here. So is it true that if you press cancel on the gas pump keypad after paying, you will erase your credit card number from the memory of the pump? Good question. I am not sure if the gas pumps retain that information or not. If the gas pump is saving the credit card information, then it's up to the business to keep that information safe. Otherwise, the business is going to have to notify you that they had a data breach. But if it's if there's a skimmer on the gas pump trying to quote unquote erase your credit card number from the memory of the pump, isn't going to matter, because the skimmer is going to pick that up either way. So getting back to the difference between debit cards and credit cards, always best to use a credit card to protect yourself from identity theft. Every time you expose access to your debit card, you're exposing access to your actual checking account, and that's your money. And then the bottom picture, that's just a picture of a broken security label, because unfortunately technology progresses and skimmers are not just the cheaply made external ones anymore. They can be internal, put it inside the machine, and it's next to impossible to know that pump has been compromised or not. Imposter scams. So let's talk about some of these phone calls. So before I put some of the different examples up on the screen, let's just talk about a couple big picture things when it comes to phone calls. One, I want everybody to understand that you can't trust caller ID. They can make your caller ID say whatever they want. It's called spoofing. They can make it say the La Crosse County Sheriff's Department or Police Department, the Social Security Administration, the American Red Cross. They can make it say anything. They can even put the real phone numbers for those agencies on your caller ID, but that doesn't mean that is who's calling you. If you look at it from the standpoint of the thief, step number one to get you to fall for a scam, they got to get you to answer the phone. So there's all these tricks that they have to try to get you to answer your phone. So they figured out a long time ago that you're less likely to answer some phone number of an area code you've never heard of. So now they'll make it look like a local number. It'll have like a La Crosse area code, and it might even be the first 3 numbers of the phone number are the same, and just 4 numbers that are just slightly different than yours. It's just meant to catch you off guard that, oh, this must be somebody I know, and I just don't have them programmed into my phone. But it's just a trick to get you to answer the phone. They might even put your own phone number on caller ID. Again, just a trick to get you to answer the phone, just trying to drive you crazy of why is your own phone number showing up on caller ID. They want you to answer to try to get to the bottom of it. Once you answer, they get a chance to start talking to you and try to get you to fall for their scam. The other thing I want to cover real quick here is the do not call list in Wisconsin. So we're the agency at the state that administers the do not call list. And the way the do not call list works is it's for telemarketing phone calls. So a telemarketing phone call is when a real legitimate business wants to call you up and sell you a product or a service. And if a business wants to do that in Wisconsin, they have to register with us as the telemarketer. They have to scrub their numbers against the do not call list to make sure that they don't accidentally call somebody. And are there violations? Sure, but we look into those. But what we're talking about on this slide, these are not telemarketing phone calls. These are criminals. These are identity thieves that are calling you up, just trying to steal your personal information or your money. So the fact that you're on the do not call list doesn't stop the criminals from calling you, because they still can physically call any number. It's a violation. It's just difficult to track down where the calls are actually coming from. So one more thing here real quick before we jump into the slide is I just want to make a differentiation between us and law enforcement. We're not law enforcement. We don't have authority to go after the criminals. That's law enforcement's job. So where we come at this is we come at the scam phone calls of trying to educate, don't answer the phone if you don't recognize the number. And if you do fall for a scam, filing an identity theft complaint with us so we can try to investigate that and get money back if there's a financial loss. So imposter scams, they'll pretend to be anybody. So they like to pick on the government, IRS, law enforcement, Social Security, all scare tactics. They're going to tell you scary things like you owe back taxes, and if you don't pay them right now over the phone, they're going to send the police to your house and arrest you. Or they just pretend to be law enforcement and threaten that you have a warrant for your arrest and that you need to pay for this over the phone right now. Social Security, the new twist on this scam that I've heard about lately is that your Social Security number has been used in criminal activity in the state of Texas involving drug trafficking and human trafficking, and they pretend to either be an attorney on the phone or a law enforcement agency, and you're in a lot of trouble. But you can get out of this trouble if you just pay some money over the phone or provide some personal information. They're all just scare tactics. They'll pretend to be family and friends. So in this category of scams is the sweetheart scam. So if you've met somebody online or you're talking with somebody online and the conversation turns towards you sending them money before you've actually had a chance to meet the person face to face, there's a really good chance that you're just talking to an identity thief that's just trying to steal money from you. They'll also pretend to be grandchildren in distress, the grandparent scam. So they'll pretend to be a grandchild that's been involved in either a crash or they've been arrested. Sometimes they pretend to be the grandchild on the phone. Sometimes they pretend to be the law enforcement officer that has the grandchild in custody. And here's why we don't recommend talking to these scammers, because they're really, really good at what they do. Their scams are fairly well thought out, and they have an answer for everything. And the grandparent scam is a good example of this. So most grandparents that I talk to, they would recognize the voice of their own grandchild on the phone. So you think that would be an easy question that you could ask somebody on the phone. I was like, well, you don't sound like my grandson or granddaughter. Well, it's always they say that they were involved in a crash with a broken nose, because then they immediately have a built-in excuse of why they don't sound right. They literally have an answer for everything. So now, with the grandparent scam, unfortunately, do grandchildren sometimes not make the best decisions? Sometimes do they get involved in crashes and they might get arrested? I mean, it could happen, right? So one low-tech thing that you can do to protect your own family from these scams is you can come up with a family password, just a unique special word that just you and the family members know. And don't post it on Facebook or anything like that. Just keep it quiet to yourself. If you ever got this phone call and you thought just for a second, this might be real, ask for the family password. You know what? Even if you don't have the family password, ask for the family password, because at that point, the identity thief is probably going to realize they're not going to be able to fool you at that point, because they have no idea what the family password is. They're going to most likely hang up on you and move on to their next potential victim. And if it really was your relative on the phone, hopefully they would remember what the family password was. Tech support. So this is a particularly nasty scam. This scam, they want to get into your computer. So if you've ever seen somebody else moving the mouse around on your screen and you don't personally know who they are, there's no telling what that person did when they were inside your computer. So they'll call you up and they'll pretend to be from Apple or Microsoft or Google or a tech support company, and they want to send you a link, and you click on that link and you're giving them permission to remote into your computer. So they're moving the mouse around on the screen and keeping you busy. Well, in the background, they could be doing all kinds of nasty stuff, installing malware, spyware programs that steal your usernames and passwords. So if you've ever seen somebody else moving the mouse around on the screen and you don't personally know who they are, we recommend disconnecting from the internet, take it to a computer repair place, have your computer scanned, make sure that none of those programs are running in the background. Excuse me. All right, charities, it gets a little tricky. So we talked about the do not call list, but charities are nonprofit. They don't have to follow the do not call list. They're allowed to call people even if you're on the list. So here comes an incoming phone call from a supposed charity. We know you can't trust caller ID. You can't trust what somebody is telling you at the other end of a phone, because you just don't know who you're talking to. At best, this is a 50-50 coin flip that you're talking to a real charity to a fake charity. So my only advice to you is just hang up. Just never, ever, ever give money to a charity over the phone when you received the phone call, because you just don't know who you're talking to. If you want to give money to a charity, that's great. Do your own research, find a charity that your money's going to go where you want your money to go. You find the real contact information for that charity, whether it's a website, an email address, or a phone number. You initiate contact. It's really the only way that you know that your money's going where you want it to, and it's not just going into the pocket of a thief. And lastly, they'll just pretend to be debt collectors, made up phantom scare tactics that if you don't pay this right now over the phone, they're going to send the police to your house and arrest you, things like that. These are all scams. Those are all big red flags that it's a scam. That's not how any legitimate business or company does business. And it's not just the imposter scams, it's also the robocalls. You may have gotten a phone call from Rachel from Cardholder Services that wants to lower the interest rates on your credit card. These robocalls are made with computers, and these computers can literally make millions and millions, if not billions of calls. So they basically call every number mathematically possible. So I'm sure you've gotten medical brace phone calls, the auto warranty phone calls, the student loan phone calls. All of these robocalls kind of have a similar theme to them. It'll be a recording, and it'll say, whatever it says, and then it'll say, press 1 to talk to a person. And if you press 1, it'll certainly put a human on the line with you and try to scam you out of something. But if you continue to listen to the message, a lot of them will eventually say press 2 or press star to end this call and be taken off this list, which sounds really good, right? Because we all want these phone calls to end. Don't do it. Don't push any buttons on your phone. Just hang up. Because if you push a button on your phone, all you do is confirm to the identity thief that this phone number is active. It belongs to somebody. They answered. They listened to everything we had to say, and they must have believed us because we even got them to push a button on the phone. This is a lead generator for them. They will then take your phone number and they'll sell it to other criminals. And when you push a button on your phone, it usually just leads to more and more scam phone calls. So best advice is not answer in the first place. As soon as you do answer and you hear that recording, just immediately hang up. They don't just call us, they send us emails as well. I'm not picking on Wells Fargo here. This is just an example of a fake Wells Fargo email. Here's how these phishing emails work. And it's not just phishing emails, it's also a lot of text messages. I've personally been getting a lot more of the fake text messages lately, the Amazon shipping scams and text messages like that. But whether it's a text message or an email, here's the general premise of how this works. They just send out as many of these as they can, and they're hoping that they send it to somebody that it makes sense. So let's look at an email here from Wells Fargo or a text message from Amazon. Well, all of us that don't have a Wells Fargo account or didn't just order something from Amazon and we receive that information, that text or that email, well, we know it's fake right away, and we wouldn't, click on it, and we just would delete it or not even open it up and move on. But let's just say you got a text message that something was shipping from Amazon, and just by chance, the night before, you had just ordered something. Or you get this email from Wells Fargo, and you happen to have a Wells Fargo account. This is what the bad guys are hoping, that just by chance, they hit you on the right day, and this makes sense. And if you make one mistake of trusting that this email or that text message is real, and you click on a link or call this phone number back, that's the one mistake, and all of a sudden you're talking to the identity thieves where you think you're talking to a legitimate business, and before you know it, you're handing over credit card information or social security numbers, or you're paying money to stop something, and all you're doing is handing that right over to the thief. So if you get an email or a text message and it is something that rings a bell with you, that this could be true and legitimate, don't ever trust any phone numbers or links that's in that incoming communication, because you just don't know who it came from. So go right to your Amazon account, or go to your Wells Fargo account, go to the account paperwork that you just got in the mail, or the app on your phone that you always access that business through, a trusted form of communication. That's the only way that you're actually talking to the real business and not an identity thief. So I think we covered this. You got to know who you're dealing with. With charities, you can ask for information in writing. Real charities are required to give that to you. But like I said, it's a 50-50 coin flip that you're talking to a fake charity compared to a real charity. I don't waste my time with that. Just, it's easy enough to find a charity willing to take your money. So do your own research on that. Speaking of research, you can call us. Our phone number will be up at the end of this presentation. We staff at Monday through Friday, 7:45 to 4:30. We can check our computer databases, help you decide if something's real or fake. if you can't get a hold of us, it's after hours or the weekend, and you've got somebody on the phone or some kind of communication, and somehow the conversation has turned towards money over the phone, just stop, take a pause. Like I said, if you can't get a hold of us, get a hold of somebody. Call the bank, call the police, call a neighbor, call a friend, call a family member, because almost always when you're talking to somebody on the phone and the conversation turns towards you paying money over the phone, especially in the form of a gift card or wiring money, it's a huge red flag that that is most likely a scam. And if it's something that sounds too good to be true, like winning the lottery or Publishers Clearinghouse, most likely that's a scam as well. So here's those prepaid Visa cards. The scammers really like you to pay with gift cards over the phone or wiring money, because one, it's immediate. The bad guys get the money, in just a matter of seconds. And those transactions are almost untraceable. So it makes it really hard for law enforcement to track down where that money went and to try to get that money back. If it is somebody saying that you've won a prize, well, if that's true, you never have to pay to claim a prize. I mean, do people win stuff sometimes? Sure. So, if you win a car or a trip and it's legitimate, you entered a contest and you actually won, might you be on the hook for taxes? Well, sure, but that's your business. That's not somebody else's business to tell you that you owe money, that you have to pay money out of pocket to get to your winnings. If you win money and you do owe taxes, they might just take the taxes right out of the winnings before they give it to you, but you don't have to pay anything out of pocket. As soon as they start telling you that it's a processing fee or a handling fee, or you got to get something through customs or whatever other excuse it is, and you have to pay out of pocket, most likely almost 100% that's a scam. We talked about not trusting caller ID. Treat your personal information like cash, because that's really what it's worth to the criminals. Data breaches, a frustrating way that our information gets leaked. If you've ever gotten this a notification letter from a business or a government agency that your information has been compromised, you're actually 3 times more likely to be the victim of identity theft. And you can see the bad guys don't discriminate. They break into whatever entity they can to try to get these records. So on the screen, you can see there's government, there's healthcare, there's social media, there's hotel chains, there's credit reporting agency, everything in between. Then here's the sad truth, is that there's been so many high-level data breaches at this point. Most likely, you've already been a part of a data breach, and that your information's out there. It's on the dark web. I hate to use the term the dark web, but it's true. It's the shady side of the internet where this information is bought and sold. And it's most likely your information and my information is just waiting for somebody to get to it and try to do bad things with it. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on data breaches, because the best thing that we can do to protect ourselves from this is freezing our credit, which we're going to talk about at the end of this presentation. But right before we get to the good information of how we protect ourselves, let's just cover social media here quick. So sites like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, everything else that you see on the screen. There's so many different types of social media out there. Some people have their social media accounts locked down pretty private, and then some are very open and very public. And we share a lot of information on social media. And identity thieves are banking on that, because the more we share, the easier it is for them to manipulate that information and try to use it against us. So you'll see things like this pop up on your feeds. Again, too good to be true. There's no such thing as just filling out a survey and getting a free Amazon gift card or Costco or Walmart or any of those major brands like that. Just skip right over this. Here's an actual public profile from somebody on social media. I think this was Facebook, and it's an older version, but it's still good information. You can see where the person worked and where they lived and where they went to college and where they went to high school. Their birthday was listed, their email address was listed. I think their phone number was listed. Just a ton of information. Not necessarily super private information. It's not individually that hard to figure out somebody's address or phone number, but to just have all of this information in one spot, just publicly accessible, just so easy for the bad guys to get to it. We're just making it too easy on them. They literally go here, get everything, Then they just go to the dark web, they find the matching social security number. Social security numbers sell for about $1 or $2 a piece. So they buy the social security number on the dark web, and now they have a full picture of your identity to immediately start doing damage. You'll also see those surveys come out for your friends that'll be like, hey, this is fun, do this with me. And it'll be all these different, crazy questions. What was the name of the street you grew up on? How many tattoos do you have? And how many surgeries do you have? And how many broken bones have you ever had? And everything else that you see on the screen. Those are all the answers to your security questions. When you set up a new account with a business, a lot of times you have to answer those 2 or 3 security questions in case you forget your password. Well, identity thieves are trying to farm that information on social media. Then they go to a site that they want to break into. They put in your username, which is usually your email address, which is pretty easy to figure out. They click the forgot password button, and they're hoping that they can answer some security questions and reset your password and take over your account. And certainly don't make it this easy on them. This mom was very excited that her son was old enough to get his first credit card, so she snapped a picture of it and posted it online without the red lines. Meant to just be a little humorous, but it actually happened. It's an old photo. You can see that it's posted with a BlackBerry. I'm not sure how old, but quite a while ago. But just good food for thought. When you post something online, how long does it stay online? Stays online forever. This photo is still floating around. So what can we do to protect ourselves when we're talking about social media? Well, set your account to private. But on top of having a private account, you also have to actually know who all your friends are. I talk to people all the time that have, hundreds and hundreds, if not over 1,000 friends on social media. They probably don't actually know that many people. So it defeats the purpose to have a private account if then you just accept friend requests from everybody. So set it to private, actually know who your friends are. Be careful what you post. You're giving away location information. The bad guys get a lot of information about the grandparent scam from social media. They'll find out where the real grandkids are traveling for spring break or winter break, what beach they're going to, what hotel they're staying at, what airline are they flying, what dates are they going to be gone. All those little pieces of the itinerary. Then when they call up and they pretend to be that grandchild that's in distress, it just puts our family members at a greater risk of falling victim to that scam, because it sounds so much more believable when the bad guys know the real trip that's taking place. With your phones, we talked about keeping your phone locked so that somebody doesn't have access to all of that information. Of course, keep your phone updated. Almost all updates also have security components to them. But one of the biggest things with smartphones is make sure that you only download apps from trusted locations. So stick to the major app stores. Don't go to a third-party website, just a random website to download an app. There's so many fake versions of apps out there. You make one misstep and you go to the wrong website, and you could install a fake version, and you're choosing to install that. So it bypasses kind of all your phone security and puts your phone at risk. And then geotagging. A lot of times the camera on our phones, the default setting is that the location, the GPS location of where you were standing when you took that photo is embedded in that photo. Then if you post that photo online, you're also posting location information. I'm not saying it's evil or bad. I just want people to understand that what information they're choosing to share online. It could be as simple as you're over at a friend's house celebrating a birthday. You take a picture of a birthday cake on the kitchen table, you post it online, and you tag the person in that post and say happy birthday. Well, you might have just given up your friend's home address. If there's a number on top of that cake, a quick math calculation gives up their birthday, and you posted their name. So just a lot of information with just possibly posting like a birthday photo. With computers, we of course want to keep our computers updated just like our phones. The HTTPS has been something that a lot of people have been trained to look for. This is a good thing to look for. So if you're online and you're going to do some online shopping and you're at a website, you want to make sure that it's an encrypted transaction, and that's the HTTPS will mean that it is encrypted. That means that nobody else can see this transaction. But I just want people to understand that you're still choosing to send your credit card or debit card information to this destination website. Just because it has the S doesn't mean that it's a legitimate website. Bad guys can make fake websites. They can get security certificates to have the HTTPS as well. So if it's a website that you're not familiar with and you're about ready to buy something online, and it's maybe a price that sounds too good to be true, so your first red flag, but let's just pretend that, you know, we're going to go through with this transaction. Do yourself a favor, put the name of that website into an internet search engine and add the word scam or fraud and hit search. See if there's a whole bunch of other people out there that also tried to buy something from that website and are complaining that they never got their product, or they got overcharged, or it's the website's a scam, or there was fraud. That would be a really bad sign that, or a good sign that you should not do business with that website. If you're not seeing those types of complaints, that'd be a little bit more information that maybe this is legitimate. Also look and see how long that website's been around for. Something that's only been around for a month or two, less trustworthy than an online retailer that's been around for 5 or 10 years or more. So just do your research before you make that decision to purchase. And preferably, if you online transactions, you're using a credit card over a debit card for reasons we talked about earlier. Other things with your computer, don't click on links or pop-up ads. And hopefully you have pop-up blockers on your computer, antivirus, anti-malware, firewall protection. If you're not sure about what all that means, get with a computer savvy family member or friend and make sure that your computer is completely up to date and protected. All right, remember the dumpster divers? Well, let's shred it before we throw it out. Pretty simple thing that we can do. The best shredder to use is a micro cut shredder. So there's 3 shredders on the market. The ones that just make the spaghetti strips that all of us could probably put that puzzle back together with enough time. Then there's the cross-cut shredders that do a pretty good job of cutting up paper into little diamond-shaped pieces of paper. I just learned this from the FBI about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, that there are actually computer programs out there that will take photos of all of those little diamond-shaped pieces of paper. Takes the computer about 8 to 10 hours, but they can put that puzzle back together. But then there's also something on the market called a micro cut shredder. This will chop up the paper into pieces smaller than a grain of rice. There's nothing that can put that puzzle back together. The best news is they all cost the same, roughly. So when you're in the market for a new shredder, make sure it says micro cut on the side. People stealing our mail, take the important stuff right to the post office. Enable something called two-factor authentication whenever offered. So a lot of your online accounts will offer something called either two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. Same thing. What that is you're telling that business that next time I sign into my account from a device that I've never signed in from before, I want you to take an extra step to verify that it's actually me signing in and not somebody else. So usually what they do is they send you an email or a text with a code that you have to put in to complete the login process. Well, the idea is that an identity thief might have stole a username and password and they're in a different state on a different device trying to sign into your account, but they probably also don't have access to your email and text messaging. So they're not going to get that second half of they're not going to get that code to complete the login process. And you just got a text or an email that somebody's trying to log into one of your accounts. It immediately lets you know which account has been compromised, so you can change that username and password. You can sign up for something called e-Notify from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. This is just an easy free thing that you can sign up for. You get an email or a text anytime that there's a transaction on your DMV account. So if you go to the DMV and you update your license plates or print off a duplicate ID card, change your address, anything that you can do at the DMV, you get an email or a text that transaction went through. Well, that's great, wonderful. But if you get an email or a text that something just happened and you didn't just go to the DMV, you immediately in real time know somebody's up to no good and you can start to try to put a stop to it. Speaking of real-time information again, informed delivery from the Postal Service. This has been around since about November of 2018. I have it. I get an email every morning about 7:30, and it shows me actual photos of all of the pieces of mail that's going to show up in my mailbox that day. And it's pretty accurate. And I get that email at 7:30 in the morning. Even if you don't get your mail until well into the afternoon, you get that email right away. So right away in the morning, you can tell if you're getting something really important, you know, to go get it out of the mailbox right away, so somebody doesn't steal your mail. If you're seeing things show up in the email, but they never make it to your mailbox, maybe somebody's already stealing your mail. Maybe the postal carrier didn't deliver something correctly, or it went to the wrong address, and now you know what piece of mail is missing, and you can follow up to make sure that you get that. It's a pretty handy service to sign up for. Here's that new thing from the IRS for tax identity protection. So for years, the IRS has offered something called an IP PIN number, an identity protection PIN number, but they used to only make it available if you could show that you were the victim of identity theft. Now they're making it available for anybody. You can proactively sign up for this. So it's kind of like that multi-factor authentication. So here's what happens is once you make it through the verification process, that you've proven that you are who you say you are to the IRS, they mail you a 6-digit PIN number to your physical address. Then when you fill out your taxes, you have to put that PIN number on all of your tax forms. So the idea is that there might be an identity thief out there that has your name and date of birth and social security number, who's going to file taxes in your name and try to steal your tax return. But they don't have this PIN number. So when they send in that tax return, the IRS is going to know that one's fake. And they're going to wait until they get the one from you with the PIN number, and then they know that one's the real one. So probably too late for this year's tax season, but definitely go to irs.gov, go through this process, and then next year they will send you that PIN number right before tax season, and you can rest assured that somebody's not going to steal your tax return. Use strong passwords. I'm supposed to tell you that you need to have different passwords for every one of your 164 online accounts. And good luck, right? How are you supposed to remember all of those different passwords? We make it too easy on the bad guys here as well. The bad guys know that most people use the same passwords for everything, or they use a base password, and then every time they have to change their password, they just increase the number at the end of it by 1. The word password and numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are still the 2 most common used passwords in the US. Like I said, we make it too easy on them. To do this correctly, look into something called a password manager. Password managers will organize your passwords for you. They create the passwords for you. They autofill the passwords for you. All you have to do is remember one master password that's really good and strong. And we have a document on how to produce a really good, strong password. And then the password manager will do all of the rest of the work. If you don't want to jump into a password manager, at a minimum, make sure that anything that deals with your money has separate passwords. So online banking, online shopping, retirement accounts, 401k, credit cards, just anything, investments, anything that has to do with money, have a different password. Because if the bad guys are able to get into one account and that password worked, they're going to start using that password combination everywhere else they can think of. And the more places it works, the more damage they can do. Most people I talk to know that they get free credit reports, but they don't actually check them. Please check your credit reports. Look for anything that is incorrect or wrong on your credit report. Due to COVID, the credit reporting agencies are now making your online credit report available to view for free every week. So it used to be that you only got one credit report every 12 months from 3 credit reporting agencies. So you could kind of stagger that throughout the year. Now all 3 of them, you can view your online report for free every week. So you can check it almost as often as you want. And then the number one thing that you can do to protect yourself is freeze your credit. I'm going to put all this up on the screen here real quick. Let's look at the right side of the screen. This is now free. I can't stress this enough. Freeze your credit. What this means is that when your credit is frozen, no one, including you, can open up a new line of credit in your name it's all stopped. So if an identity thief out there has your name, your date of birth, your social security number, and everything else, they will not be able to open up a new credit card, a new payday cash loan, get an auto loan, no new lines of credit. But you as the consumer, you still have access to your credit. So when you want to sign up for that new credit card, or you need to buy a car and get a loan for it, you can temporarily lift this freeze or thaw it, do that legitimate transaction, and then refreeze your credit so nobody else can do bad things. This is the number one thing that you can do to protect yourself from financial identity theft. Can't stress this enough. And so part of attending tonight's presentation, there's a bunch of fact sheets that we produce, 1, 2, 3-page documents that detail a lot of this information. I forwarded those to the library earlier today, so they should be made available. Information on how to check your credit report, how to freeze your credit, how to make sure that you're on secure Wi-Fi, just a whole bunch of information. So look for that information. I got about 2 slides left for you here. We're right on time. These are just warning signs that you might be the victim of identity theft. So if you notice any of this, or if any of this shows up at the house, unauthorized debit or credit charges, you want to report those right away. Start getting credit cards in the mail that you did not sign up for. Sign that you might be the victim of identity theft. Unsolicited change of address. It's actually really easy to change your address with the U.S. Postal Service. And this is often one of the first things an identity thief wants to do, because they want to control where all the mail's going. So if you see a notice from the Postal Service that your address is changing and you're not moving, don't ignore it. Put a stop to that right away. If you get a W-2 at your house of your name and your social security number, but for a job you've never heard of, you might be the victim of identity theft. Explanation of benefits. So anytime there's a medical procedure, you get the explanation of benefits. Look at all of those. I mean, one, you want to, of course, make sure that the billing is accurate and correct. But if it's something that you didn't have done, somebody could be going to the hospital or the clinic and lying and having treatment done under your name. Of course, if you get a notification that they're going to suspend your driver's license for an unpaid citation, you want to double check that somebody's not using your name and lying to law enforcement. Or it can be as simple as you sign up for that new credit card, or you try to get a loan and you get denied. Time to check the credit report and see what's going on. And this is where we get involved. So you can file an identity theft complaint with us. And what we do is we mediate that between you and the financial institutions and the credit reporting agencies to close down those fraudulent accounts and try to get that off your record and recover any money lost. And then the last slide here's that 1-800 number that we staff Monday through Friday, 1-800-422-7128. There is our website as well, the datcp.wi.gov. You can find all kinds of consumer information and fact sheets and other information on our website. And then an email address right in the middle that's specifically for identity theft. Myself and about 4 other people have access to that email inbox. So if you have any questions, certainly send them there, and we can try to get those taken care of.